The moment my eyes opened to this life, I knew I was in trouble. Not because I was waiting tables at a greasy spoon diner, but because I knew this wasn't my life at all. I was a character in a book, and I was cast as the villain. For 6 months, I'd been living on autopilot, slinging coffee and wiping down sticky tables, waiting for my long-lost billionaire father to find me. In the original story, that's what happens tomorrow. I, Sadie, get reclaimed by my wealthy family. Then I'm promptly married off to Cole Sterling, a man who has no love for me and who subjects me to a miserable, lonely marriage while he pines for his one true love. The heroine of this story is Nina, my fellow waitress. She gets the fairy tale. She meets the handsome and devoted Owen, who worships the ground she walks on. Her life becomes a daily parade of affection and happiness, which she lovingly recounts to me, unknowingly driving the original Sadie mad with jealousy. That jealousy culminates in me trying to ruin their lives, a path that leads me straight to a prison cell while they welcome a pair of twins. Seriously, what kind of hack writer came up with this garbage? I have money, free time, and a husband. Why would I throw away a perfectly good life just to sabotage the main characters? According to the script, my first step is to be welcomed home by my father. The next is to be married off to Cole. But now I'm awake, and I choose to live. The evening after our quiet courthouse wedding, Cole announced he was going out to see his old flame, Tessa. In the book, I was supposed to throw a fit. "You should bring flowers," I suggested, looking up from the stock market app on my new phone. "Tessa adores white roses. Don't get the wrong ones." Cole paused, his hand on the doorknob. He looked suspicious, as he should. The Sadie he was expecting would be clinging to his arm, begging him not to go. My old moral compass would have screamed that marriage means fidelity, but that was the old me. The new me likes money. "Cole," I said, putting my phone down, "to ensure a peaceful coexistence, how about we make an arrangement?" "An arrangement?" he asked, his voice flat. "You live your life, I help you keep it discreet. In return, you pay me a fee for each outing." He stared at me, his handsome face a mask of disbelief. I raised an eyebrow, genuinely confused by his reaction. "Isn't this how it works in your world? Marriage is for business, for mutual benefit. Love is for, well, everyone has their own roster of names, don't they?" Cole was silent for 2 long beats. He finally conceded, "Separate lives after marriage is common. Demanding hush money from your own husband is not." I spread my hands wide. A man's heart is a fleeting commodity. A bank account, however, is beautifully consistent. He just stared, then turned and left without another word. A few minutes later, Nina called. Going by the story's timeline, she and Owen were already inseparable. She would gush about how he doted on her, then ask how I was doing. In the original plot, with Cole out visiting his true love, my life was miserable. Nina, whether intentionally or just from a lack of social awareness, would rub her happiness in my face, fueling my rage. The heiress of a powerful family, living a life worse than a girl with nothing. How could I not be furious? But now I truly wasn't. "So, how've you been?" Nina asked, right on cue. I smiled. "Busy. I'm packing." "Oh my gosh, why?" she gasped. "Did you and Cole have a fight?" "I don't have the time to fight with him," I said breezily. "I'm going on a trip, abroad." "A honeymoon? That's so romantic." "Nope, just me." Nina let out a shocked little squeak. "But you're newlyweds. Aren't you trying to, make a baby?" I laughed. "A baby?" "Nina, darling, Cole and I barely share the same zip code emotionally." I quickly wrapped up the call. The moment a notification for a wire transfer from Cole Sterling appeared on my phone, I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the airport. That night, Cole returned to a dark, empty mansion. Puzzled, he called my phone. "Where are you?" he demanded. "Watching the sunset," I replied cheerfully. "Here in the Maldives." The second day of my Maldivian paradise, just as I was settling into a state of blissful detachment, they arrived, Nina and Owen. "I missed you so much," Nina declared, hugging me tightly. "I told Owen we just had to come and see you." Somehow, I doubted that. A subtle yet unmistakable air of showing off clung to them. It was in the way Owen's hand never left the small of her back, the way she casually mentioned the private jet he chartered. They were a walking, talking romance novel cover, and I was the reluctant audience. Worse, she began treating me like a personal assistant. "Sadie, could you grab my sunglasses? Owen says the glare is bad for my complexion." "Sadie, be a dear and ask the concierge about that private dinner on the sand. Owen wants everything to be perfect." An outsider would have mistaken me for their hired help. That was the final straw. I booked a flight to Italy for the next morning. Nina was aghast when I told her. "You're spending money like water. Doesn't Cole say anything?" "Cole and I have a commercial marriage, Nina," I said calmly, the words cool and precise. "He's not my keeper." The word commercial seemed to wound her romantic sensibilities. Her face fell, a shadow crossing her usually bright eyes. After a moment of careful scrutiny, she whispered, "Well, have a good time." "Oh, I will," I thought. "Just please stop following me with your fairy tale." Even though the book had cast me as a villain, I had no desire to be a supporting character in anyone else's story. You can't force a horse to drink, especially when the water is laced with someone else's sickeningly sweet romance. After nearly 2 weeks of living on pasta and art in Florence, my phone rang. It was Cole. His voice was tight with irritation. "There's a gala. I need you here." I examined my freshly painted nails. "Can't you take Tessa? I'm sure she'd love to go." "No," he snapped. "This is a major event for Sterling Corp. My parents will be there. Your parents will be there. The board will be watching. I need my wife." "What a shame," I sighed dramatically. "I'm not quite done exploring. The Uffizi Gallery is calling my name." A cold, humorless laugh came down the line. "I've never met a woman so eager to push her husband away. You're really something else, Sadie." "Am I?" I thought back to the original script. In that version, every time he went to see Tessa, I would create a scene. The screaming matches would escalate until he disappeared for months. I would then track down Tessa and confront her, which would provoke Cole into a fury, leading to ugly, physical altercations. The whole mess would become a public scandal, humiliating both our families. Was that what he wanted? A repeat of that disaster? "Cole," I said, my voice turning businesslike, "if you want me to fly back and play my part, it's possible. But I have one condition." "What condition?" he asked suspiciously. "My friend's birthday is coming up. You will escort me, and you will act the part of a devoted husband, impeccably." Nina's birthday. I knew she would invite me, and I knew I'd have to endure another full-blown presentation of her perfect love life. I had no intention of continuing our friendship long-term, but back when we were just two broke girls working at the diner, she'd once stood up for me during a nasty confrontation with the manager. I owed her one last appearance. And if I had to sit through her happiness, I was going to do it with a handsome, attentive husband of my own as a shield. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, he agreed. The next day, I was on a flight back to the States. My plane was delayed, and by the time I walked through the arrivals gate, Cole had been waiting for 3 hours. I was met with a face as dark as a thundercloud. Not happy to see me? I chirped. I can always get back on the plane. He didn't say a word, his jaw tight with suppressed anger. He practically shoved me into the back of his chauffeured sedan, then tossed a garment bag at me. Change, we're late. Change in here? Cole pressed a button, and a dark privacy shield glided up, separating us from the driver. There, no one can see you. I looked at him slowly. And you're not a person, I suppose? To keep from exploding, he turned his head sharply to stare out the window. The reflection from the glass, Cole, I reminded him sweetly. Remember to close your eyes? He took a deep, shuddering breath, his composure fraying at the edges. He whipped his head back around to glare at me. Sadie, we are legally married. It is perfectly legal for me to see you. Oh, I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. In that case, by all means, look. And I began to unbutton my blouse. Cole, the man who was supposed to be my cold-hearted tormentor, turned a shade of crimson that clashed violently with his designer suit. He looked away, completely flustered. You fool, I thought with a smirk. I know the entire script. Cole is the type of man who projected an aura of absolute control. If you challenged him, he could crush you. But if you were bold and met his fire with an unbothered confidence, he short-circuited. After he averted his gaze, I leisurely changed into the elegant evening gown. When we arrived at the gala, I immediately looped my arm through his, plastering a brilliant smile on my face. Cole, to his credit, was a fantastic actor. He placed his hand over mine, his thumb stroking my knuckles in a gesture of faux affection. Your performance is excellent, Mr. Sterling, I murmured under my breath as a wave of photographers descended. After the party, I'll expect a bonus of, say, $1 million. He shot me a look, but his smile for the cameras never wavered. Throughout the evening, I navigated the sea of high society sharks with an ease that belied my years spent away from this world. Cole's gaze shifted from initial surprise to something more complex, more ambiguous. I felt it the moment we got back into the car. The air was thick with unspoken thoughts. To clear it, I immediately drew the line. Tonight was a success. I helped you, which means you owe me your help in return. We're even. Don't get any strange ideas. Cole seemed to have had a bit too much whiskey. He leaned back against the plush leather seat, his eyes hazy. He tugged at his tie, loosening it with a sigh that gave him a dangerously rakish look. You're only marrying me for the money, didn't you? What else? I replied with absolute sincerity. For your sparkling personality? My honesty seemed to wound him more than any lie could. He straightened up, his eyes flashing with anger. He lunged across the seat, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward him. A man like me and you don't like what you see? What type do you like, Sadie? I plucked a name out of thin air. Someone like Owen. Owen? His voice was a low growl. Isn't that your best friend's man? So what? I challenged. All's fair in love and war. I'm exactly the kind of friend people should be wary of. He stared, utterly baffled by my skewed morals. Your husband is sitting right in front of you. And? Furious, Cole yanked off his tie completely, tossing it aside. Then he grabbed my hand and pressed it flat against his chest, then his abdomen. The crisp cotton of his shirt did little to hide the hard planes of muscle beneath. My God, was this brute trying to use a honey trap on me? What are you doing? I tried to pull my hand back, but his grip was iron. He leaned in, a wicked smirk playing on his lips, until I was trapped between the car door and his body. To say you like another man in front of me, he whispered, his voice a dangerous purr. Sadie, are you trying to get yourself killed? The air was electric. His expression, his words, the sheer proximity of him, it was all too much. For one treacherous second, I almost thought he actually had feelings for me. Then his phone buzzed, the screen lighting up the dark interior of the car. The caller ID displayed a single, intimate name: Tessa. It was like a bucket of ice water. Cole glanced at the screen and, with a flick of his thumb, dismissed the call. But the spell was broken. I was wide awake. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "Mr. Cole," I asked, my voice dripping with irony, "aren't you the one in love with another woman?" He froze, my question hitting him like a physical blow. I used the moment to push him away, smoothing down my dress. "Don't forget our arrangement, Mr. Cole," I reminded him, my voice cool as steel. "We are nothing more than a commercial marriage." In the original story, he had used that exact line to silence me time and time again. Now, the words were mine, and they left him speechless. The aftermath of my commercial marriage declaration was a heavy, suffocating silence. For the next several days, Cole treated me like a ghost, his presence in the mansion cold and remote. It was a direct consequence of wounding his pride, but it was a consequence I was happy to live with. Until the day of Nina's birthday party. "Are you still coming with me?" I asked, finding him in his study. He didn't look up from his laptop. "If I don't," he said, his voice clipped and cold, "will you go alone?" "No," I replied smoothly. "I can find someone else." "A man or a woman?" I just stared at him, letting my silence answer the most ridiculous question I'd ever heard. In that quiet moment, my disdain was more eloquent than any word could have been. He finally looked up, his eyes blazing. "You dare," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You dare find another man to go with you? Do you have any idea what I would do?" Was he sick? The scandal would humiliate him more than me. Still, his possessive fury told me what I needed to know. He was agreeing to go. Theatrics aside, he wouldn't let me be seen on another man's arm. My expression softened instantly into a practiced, pleasant smile. "Well then, shall we go?" I said sweetly, extending my hand. Cole was so taken aback by my sudden shift in demeanor that he stumbled slightly as I pulled him to his feet. As we walked toward the door, I saw him glance down at our intertwined hands, and the faintest, most reluctant smile touched the corner of his lips. Nina's birthday party was as extravagant as expected. Owen had clearly spared no expense. But as I scanned the crowd, I realized that, apart from me, every single guest was a friend of Owen or his powerful family. Nina was a queen in a castle full of strangers. She spotted us and immediately dragged Owen over. As the two men shook hands, Cole's eyes glinted with mischief. "Owen," he said, his voice a smooth, dangerous drawl, "a pleasure. My wife tells me she's a great admirer of your style." I froze. This man was going to start a war right here. I subtly dug my nails into his side. He flinched and shot me a glare. Thankfully, another couple approached to greet the birthday girl, and I seized the opportunity to pull Cole into an empty corner. "What do you think you're doing?" I hissed. "You promised you would cooperate." "How should I cooperate? Should I hold you like Owen holds Nina, whisper sweetheart into your ear for everyone to see?" The word sweetheart made my skin crawl. He was so obviously jealous, but for what? Our marriage was a sham. Before I could formulate a response, an older gentleman called his name, a business partner. Cole gave me one last irritated look before striding off. I turned back to find Nina standing alone, Owen having been pulled into a different conversation. This was my chance. "It's a beautiful party, Nina," I said sincerely. "Thank you," she beamed. "I wanted to invite some of our other friends, but, well, Owen's family is on another level. I was afraid everyone would feel uncomfortable." I nodded, offering a noncommittal smile. To avoid another gushing monologue about Owen, I tried to steer the conversation to solid ground. "You know, I was thinking about our future, our careers. Back at the diner, we had no capital, no connections, but now I'm back with my family and you have Owen. We could do anything. Start a business, maybe." I thought a serious topic like career planning would be safe. I was wrong. Nina shook her head, her expression earnest. "I don't really have any plans right now," she said softly. "I just want to be with Owen. He has terrible insomnia, you see. He can only truly sleep when I'm beside him." I was speechless. I had naively assumed a topic as grounded as a career wouldn't somehow lead back to a display of their epic love. Yet here I was, being force-fed another serving of their romance. My own plan for the future, to build an empire, felt crass and lonely next to her story of healing her lover with her mere presence. And then, as if on cue, Owen reappeared. He wrapped his arm around Nina's waist, pulling her close. "Are your feet getting tired, my love?" he murmured. Nina giggled. "Not at all. You've done so much for me. You're the one who must be exhausted." Owen kissed her temple. "As long as my baby is happy, that's all that matters." Enough. A villain's life is still a life, isn't it? Why did I have to be subjected to this cringeworthy public display? I turned to leave and nearly collided with the man. It was Chad, the novel's other male antagonist. I knew him instantly. Chad Becker. In the original story, he was obsessed with Nina. After being rejected, he conspires with me, the scorned wife, to wreak havoc. Our toxic alliance not only fails, but also sparks rumors that I'm having an affair with him, cementing my ruinous reputation. "Sadie Sterling," he said, his smile oozing a cheap, practiced charm. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you." My immediate instinct was to recoil, but Nina, bless her naive heart, was oblivious. She shot me a subtle, encouraging look as if to say, "See, Cole treats you terribly, but here's another option." An option? I'd rather swallow glass. Even if I wanted to find a new man, it wouldn't be this predator in a designer suit. "I'd like to get your number," Chad continued, already holding out his phone. "We should connect." I was just about to lie that my phone was dead when a hand clamped around my arm and yanked me backward. I stumbled, colliding hard against a solid chest. My head spun. It was Cole. He wrapped a possessive arm around my waist, pulling me tight against his side. His body was rigid with fury as he stared daggers at Chad. "What do you think you're doing? Trying to hit on my wife right in front of me?" Cole's voice was dangerously low. Chad's family, the Beckers, were influential in their own right, and our families had some business ties. He wasn't afraid of Cole. In fact, he looked amused, clearly believing Cole wouldn't dare make a scene over me. After all, everyone knew his heart belonged to Tessa. I was just a pawn, a disposable bride of convenience he'd been forced to marry after my younger sister, the family favorite, refused. I had no choice in the matter. It was either marry Cole or return to a life of poverty. Why would he possibly care enough to risk a public feud and, more importantly, risk upsetting his precious Tessa? Chad's smirk widened. Relax, Cole. Don't be so territorial. I was just asking for her number. It's not like I was trying to steal her. Get lost. The words, sharp and utterly dismissive, cut through the party chatter. A sudden hush fell over our corner of the room. The onlookers stared, their eyes wide. Chad's smirk vanished, replaced with a dark flush of anger. "Are you serious, Cole?" hissed your pride, wounded. "I'm showing you respect here." Cole didn't even glance at him. He turned his head, his intense gaze boring into me. "Do you?" he asked, his voice a low growl that was for my ears only. His expression was murderous, a silent promise of consequences if I even thought about nodding. I, who wanted nothing to do with Chad in the first place, shook my head immediately. The tension in Cole's shoulders eased almost imperceptibly. He then turned his gaze towards Owen, who was watching the scene unfold with a frown. "This parasite isn't just sniffing around my wife, Owen. He wants yours too. You'd be wise to watch your back." And with that final, devastating pronouncement, he tightened his grip on my waist and pulled me away, leaving Chad red-faced and humiliated in the middle of the stunned crowd. He was tall with a long stride, and I, in my high heels, struggled to keep up. I stumbled, my ankle twisting painfully. "Are you insane?" I cried out. The pain made me sharp. "If Chad made you angry, go yell at him. Why are you taking it out on me?" Cole turned to glare at me, but he didn't check my ankle. His anger was still fixated on the party. "If I hadn't been there tonight, you would have given Chad your number, wouldn't you?" The corner of my mouth twitched. "Of course not," I said sweetly. "Chad is trash. That Hamilton kid from the finance group, though, he seemed quite charming." "Sadie!" Cole roared, his face a mask of fury. He looked like he wanted to devour me whole, but I remained perfectly unfazed. The hypocrite. I'd seen him text Tessa earlier, replying with a simple, "okay," when she asked him to come over tonight. If his heart and mind were with another woman, he had no right to play the possessive husband with me. "If you have plans, you should go," I told him, my voice cool. "I can get a cab home." My nonchalance only fueled his rage. His face became darker than the night sky outside. He shoved me back into the car, slammed the door, and barked at the driver, "To the hospital, now." On the way, his phone lit up again. A text from Tessa. He ignored it. A moment later, she called. With a frustrated sigh, he answered. "I'm on my way to the hospital," he said curtly. Tessa's voice, tinny through the phone speaker, was laced with immediate alarm. "What? What happened? Cole, did you drink too much? Are you hurt?" Cole's eyes flickered down to my throbbing ankle. "Someone else got hurt," he said evasively. "It wasn't me." "Someone else?" Tessa's voice was sharp with suspicion. I leaned forward, a devilish grin on my face. I got very close to the phone and silently mouthed the words, a perfect exaggerated pantomime. "Hubby, who is someone else?" Cole's eyes widened in panic, terrified I might actually speak the words out loud. He hung up so abruptly he nearly dropped the phone. I leaned back, giving him a pitying look. "You're such a coward. I told you, my discretion is for sale. For the right price, I'm the perfect corporate wife." He didn't answer, stewing in a silence that was thicker than the one before. I never imagined Tessa would actually show up at the emergency room. She rushed in, looking pale and worried, a perfect portrait of concern. "Sadie, I hope you don't mind me coming," she said, her voice soft. "I was just so worried about Cole." If she were truly worried I would mind, she wouldn't be here. Her presence was a declaration, a deliberate move to mark her territory. And in that instant, a thought struck me with crystal clarity. In the story of my life with Cole, Tessa was the true villain. It wasn't my fault, or Nina's. It was hers. Unfortunately, the story of me and Cole wasn't a romance where the hero saves the day. It was a melodrama, and I was cast as the woman to be sacrificed. Just then, Cole's phone rang again. This time, it was an important business call he couldn't ignore. He stepped out into the hallway to take it, leaving me alone with my nemesis. The moment he was gone, Tessa's soft demeanor sharpened. She looked directly at me, her eyes holding a glint of steel. "Miss Lang, have you ever considered divorce?" I met Tessa's steely gaze without flinching. Divorce? No, the thought has never crossed my mind. My flat, emotionless reply seemed to stun her. She bit her lip, regrouping before pressing on. "And you can stand it? The three of us living like this?" A laugh escaped my lips. Why wouldn't I? Our marriage was never about love. He can have you on the side, and I am perfectly free to find entertainment of my own. My magnanimity was clearly not the reaction she wanted. As she heard Cole's footsteps returning down the hall, she made her move. In one swift motion, Tessa picked up a cup of water from the side table and splashed it all over her own face and blouse, just as Cole walked back in. He stopped, dead, taking in the scene, Tessa looking drenched and pathetic, me holding the now empty cup that she had just pressed into my hand. "Sadie," he growled, his voice thick with accusation. "What did you do?" I looked down at the cup, then back at Tessa's masterful performance of a damsel in distress, and I couldn't help it. I laughed. My laughter was like gasoline on a fire. "What's so funny?" Cole raged. "Tessa came here because she was worried about me. If you don't like her, you could have asked her to leave. Did you have to humiliate her like this?" I wasn't surprised. Of course, he'd blame me. In the script of this novel, I'm the evil female support character. In Cole's mind, I'm already a bad person, a woman capable of trying to steal her best friend's man, so naturally, I'd be cruel to my husband's mistress. The double standard was laughable. A villainess is allowed to destroy others, but heaven forbid someone else disrupt her life. Fine. If they wanted a villain, I'll give them one. I reached over, picked up my own full cup of water, and before either of them could react, I tossed its contents directly into Tessa's shocked face. "There," I said calmly, placing the cup down with a soft click. "That one was from me. I take full responsibility for my actions." "Cole!" Tessa gasped, real tears mixing with the water streaming down her face as she threw herself into his arms. It's my fault. I shouldn't have come here unannounced. She has every right to be angry. Please don't be mad at her." What a performance. The author of this book really should have sent her to bother Nina and Owen. What was the point of wasting such talent on a loveless, fake couple like us? The commotion had attracted a nurse, who now stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with curiosity. Seeing an audience, I decided to end the show with a flourish. I smiled sweetly at my fuming husband. "What are you standing there for, darling?" I chirped. "Hurry up and take your old flame home." The nurse's eyes practically lit up with the juicy gossip. The chart clearly stated Cole and I were husband and wife, yet here he was, with his crying mistress clinging to him. Who wouldn't want to hear the end of this story? Too bad I had no intention of staying for the finale. Seeing Cole frozen in place, I simply turned and walked out of the room, my injured ankle protesting with every step. Downstairs, I hailed a cab. I had been sitting in the back seat for less than 2 minutes when my phone rang. It was Nina. "Sadie, are you okay?" Nina's voice crackled with concern. She quickly recounted the party's dramatic fallout. Apparently, Chad had thrown a fit after we left, loudly vowing to make Cole pay. "These things get twisted, and I'm worried the rumors will get back to your parents and you'll be the one who gets in trouble. Listen, how about I ask Owen to have a quiet word with them?" "No, Nina, that's too much trouble," I said automatically. "It's not," she insisted, a familiar gushing tone entering her voice. "Owen will do anything I ask. He always does." There it was again, the casual display of her perfect love. In the original script, this would have been the final straw. Fresh from the humiliation with Cole and Tessa, hearing Nina flaunt her happiness would have sent me into a spiral of rage. But the new me felt nothing. A strange, cold calm washed over me. I finally understood Nina. She had been starved for affection her whole life. Now that Owen was spoiling her, she wanted to shout it from the rooftops. She wasn't showing off at me, she was showing off to the world. More importantly, I no longer had any expectations for love or marriage. My goal was to rewrite my ending. And in this new script, Nina and her powerful fiancé weren't rivals. They were a resource, a very valuable resource. "So," I asked her, changing the subject, "when are you two getting married?" Nina was flustered. "Oh, I haven't really thought about it." "You should," I encouraged her. "Lock it down. You deserve a happy ending." Without me, the villain, standing in their way, they should be able to get there much faster. The next afternoon, my mother called, her voice sharp as she summoned me home. But I wasn't worried. I knew Owen had made his call. They could be angry, but they wouldn't dare cross him. When I walked into the ridiculously opulent living room, my parents were fawning over my younger sister, Annabella. "Oh, look at her new manicure. Isn't she just perfect?" my mother cooed. Annabella, 2 years my junior, was the cherished daughter. Her name meant peace, a wish for a life of undisturbed tranquility. Unlike mine, which had been derailed by a childhood kidnapping. The Sterling family had originally wanted Annabella as a bride for Cole, but she had a boyfriend and threw a fit and threatened to run away if they forced her. It was only then that my parents, having conveniently just located their long-lost, damaged daughter, remembered I existed and offered me up as a substitute. In the original novel, my parents' blatant favoritism was the fuel for my jealousy of Nina's happiness. The awakened me just found it pathetic. Nina's version of happiness wasn't what I was after. I waited for a lull in their doting. "Father, mother," I said, my voice clear and steady. "I want to talk about my future." They looked at me surprised.
"I know that Lang Enterprises and Sterling Corp have a new joint project in Australia," I continued. "The team is still being formed. I want a position on that project. I want to go there and learn the business." My mother, who had been admiring Annabelle's hand, looked at me as if I'd grown a second head. She let out a short, sharp laugh. "You? What would you do? The business world would laugh at us for putting a clueless girl like you in a position of power." "Even if we agreed," my father added, "the Sterlings never would." "I'll handle the Sterlings," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. The certainty in my voice made them pause. To them, I was a bargaining chip, a piece to be traded for influence. If that chip could suddenly stand on its own at the Sterlings' table, if I could actually hold some sway, well, that would be a very good thing for the Lang family, wouldn't it? My father's expression shifted. "If the Sterlings agree," he said slowly, "then we have no objection." I nodded. "Then you can wait for the good news." As I stood to leave, Annabelle spoke for the first time, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Leaving so soon, sister? Not staying for dinner? I'm sure we can find some leftovers, though I doubt you'd be interested. They hadn't planned for me to stay. I knew that. No, thank you, I replied, not looking at her. I have work to do. I wasn't interested in fighting her for scraps of affection. I was only interested in one thing, earning my own money. After that, the world would be mine to explore, free and unbothered. The story of the hospital incident spread through the city's elite circles like wildfire. To my surprise, it resulted in Cole's parents giving him a stern lecture. Their reasoning was simple and cold. I was now close with Nina, and by extension, Owen. The Sterlings, like my own family, understood the value of that connection and would not allow Cole's personal drama to jeopardize it. I called Nina to thank her. "Don't even mention it," she said, brightly, before lowering her voice. "Besides, I have news. Owen is going to propose." "What about the wedding?" I asked, a genuine smile on my face for her. "We're already planning. I'll tell you the date as soon as we set it. Oh, Sadie, I want you to be my bridesmaid." The request hit me with a wave of irony. In the original plot, I had accepted the same offer with a heart full of poison, planning to ruin her wedding and humiliate her in front of everyone. That act was the catalyst for my complete downfall. I was quietly thankful that path was now closed forever. As Nina and I were laughing, Cole came home. He moved so silently, or perhaps I was so engrossed in the call that I didn't notice him standing in the doorway of the library. "How are things with you and Cole?" Nina asked. I answered without thinking. "Oh, he's probably with Tessa right now. After that little show she put on at the hospital, he must feel terribly sorry for her." "You just let him get away with that?" Nina gasped. "I don't have the energy to care," I said with a shrug in my voice. "Besides, I'll be out of the country in a few days." "You are? Where are you going?" "Our families have that joint venture project in Australia. They need people, so I'm going for some hands-on experience." "Wow! Did Cole agree to that?" "I don't care if he agrees or not. Before I could finish, my phone was snatched from my hand. I looked up to see Cole, his face a thundercloud. It seemed to be his permanent expression whenever he looked at me. He ended the call and glared down at me. "Who gave you permission to go to Australia?" he demanded. "My parents and your parents," I retorted calmly. "Now give me my phone back." He tightened his grip on it. "They may have agreed," he snarled, "but I haven't. Sadie, I am your husband." "So? You think you can stop me?" "Try me." He pulled out his own phone, his thumb hovering over my father's contact number. He knew my family was the junior partner in this arrangement. They would fold to his demands. But he was playing an old game. I had a new card up my sleeve.
"I should warn you," I said, my voice dangerously soft. "Owen himself made the introductions for me on this project. If you try to block it now, you're not just crossing me, you're disrespecting him." For a moment, it seemed my words had pushed him past his breaking point. Reason fled from his eyes, replaced by a raw, ugly fury. "Owen! Owen! Always Owen! What's the matter, Sadie? Are you that obsessed, hoping he has room for two?" Crack! The sound of my hand striking his cheek echoed in the silent room. He stared at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. I, the powerless wife from a second-tier family, the woman with no backing, had just slapped him. I lowered my hand, my palm stinging. "Even if you ruin this for me," I said, my voice eerily calm, "I'll just ask Nina to get me a position at one of Owen's own companies. Can you block that too, Cole? Save your energy. Go spend time with Tessa. Once I'm gone, you'll both be much freer. Isn't that what you want?" My words left him speechless, cornered by a logic he couldn't refute. The anger in his eyes was slowly being extinguished by a wave of raw desperation. As I turned to head upstairs and pack, he grasped my wrist. "You want a career, you don't have to go abroad," he said, his voice hoarse and strained. He wouldn't look at me. "My company, your family's, just say the word, you can have any position you want." I stopped him, my voice softening unexpectedly. "Cole, there are no feelings between us. My going abroad gives you and Tessa space, and it gives me freedom. It's the best option for everyone." "It's not the best option for me," he said, finally meeting my eyes. "Why?" I asked, genuinely surprised.
Why do you think I don't want you to go? He shot back, a question that hung in the air between us. Before I could process it, he continued, the words tumbling out as if a dam had broken. That night at the hospital with Tessa, I knew she was putting on an act. I saw it, and I couldn't accept that the woman I thought I knew was capable of that. So I stayed away. I drank. But the more I drank, the more I thought of you. He took a ragged breath. Sadie, let's give this a try. Try what? I asked, my heart turning to ice. Us, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Let's try to build something real. Build something? The only thing I'd be building with him was my own grave. I had fought so hard to claw my way out of the tragic ending written for me, and now he wanted to drag me right back to the beginning? Could he promise to cut ties with Tessa forever? Could he guarantee another woman wouldn't appear down the line? Even if he swore on his life, I wouldn't believe him. Love in this world was a lie. Money and distance were the only truths I could trust. The day I flew to Australia, Nina came to the airport to see me off. Owen swamped with wedding plans, so he couldn't make it, she explained. Sadie, she asked, her eyes full of concern, will you still come back to be my bridesmaid? I'll be there, I promised. She glanced around the bustling terminal. You're really just leaving like this? I knew she was looking for Cole. He showed up at our house last night, she confessed in a low voice. He was drunk, asking me if you really had feelings for Owen. It scared me, so I called you to come get him. I remembered the call, his dead weight against me as I half-carried him to the car. Before you got there, Nina continued, he was a mess. He kept saying that you were in love with Owen, but then he said that he was in love with you. She shook her head. I know the first part is nonsense. You and Owen barely speak without me there. But the second part, I believe it. You two have been living together for a while. And Sadie, you've been so patient with him, so good to him despite everything. It's only normal that he'd fall for you. Normal? I thought, a bitter smile on my face. According to the original plot, he should despise me by now. Was it because my indifference, so contrary to the character I was supposed to be, intrigued him? Did he, the great Cole Sterling, assume I was a weed that would cling to him forever, only to find that I was pulling up my own roots and moving to a different continent? I knew what this was. It wasn't love. It was the predictable tantrum of a man who, having just discovered his favorite toy was broken, turned to his second favorite only to find it was no longer on the shelf. He couldn't have me, and so he wanted me more than ever. It was as simple and as meaningless as that. As I walked toward the security gate, I thought I saw a familiar silhouette standing far in the distance, watching. It looked like Cole. But I didn't turn back to check. It didn't matter if it was him or not. I was already flying toward a world of my own making.
My new life in Australia was a whirlwind of meetings, spreadsheets, and site visits. Work consumed me, and I welcomed it. The drama of my other life faded into the background, surfacing only in the occasional, mundane text from Cole asking where I kept the spare towels or the coffee filters. Those messages were strange little reminders that I was, technically, still married. I remembered the night before I left, I had brought up divorce. Cole had refused. He'd stood in the middle of the living room, looking at the house I had organized, at the life I had seamlessly managed for him, and he couldn't bring himself to let it go. I understood then that his feelings weren't love. It was the simple, human reluctance to lose something comfortable and beneficial. My decision to leave was the right one. The 6 months of distance did what my presence never could. It made his supposed feelings for me grow. Had I stayed, softened by his confession, we would have likely burned out by now, sick of the sight of each other. I saw him again at Nina and Owen's wedding. He was standing alone at the end of a long, sunlit corridor without Tessa. He was waiting for me. "When are you coming back?" he asked as I approached. "You know why I'm here, Cole," I replied softly. He knew my flight schedule.
He'd asked Nina for it a dozen times. The black car that picked me up from the airport was his, too. "We need to talk," he said. "Okay." Over the next half hour, he told me everything. How he had completely cut off contact with Tessa, who had tried to see him several times before finally giving up. His parents had been feeding me these updates for months, their motives purely selfish. I was thriving in Australia. The joint venture was a resounding success, and more importantly, I had leveraged my friendship with Nina to become a consultant on one of Owen's major projects there. I was no longer the evil supporting character. I was now the successful, well-connected best friend of the main couple. I was using their resources to build my own empire, and neither the Langs nor the Sterlings could control me anymore. "I've applied for permanent residency in Australia," I told him quietly. He stared at me, the blood draining from his face. "You're not coming back?" "No." "Then what about me?" The question was so vulnerable, so lost. "In the original story," I began, deciding to tell him a version of the truth, "we would have had a terrible ending. We would have destroyed each other, full of hate. I worked hard to change that story. I'm very happy with where we are now." Cole shook his head, a pained look in his eyes. "I would never have hurt you, not like that." He didn't believe the details of my story, but it didn't matter anymore. "Cole," I said, my voice gentle but firm, "let's get a divorce tomorrow." "No," he said instantly, "I don't agree." "It's pointless to refuse. After this wedding, I'm flying back to Australia and I won't be returning. Our marriage is just a piece of paper. It doesn't change anything." "If it makes no difference, then why do you insist on it?" "To give you your freedom," I said. He let out a short, cold laugh. "Are you giving me freedom, Sadie, or are you taking your own?" I met his gaze, and for the first time, gave him the whole truth. "I want my freedom too," I admitted. "So please, Cole, grant me that." My sincerity seemed to extinguish the last of his anger, leaving only a deep, quiet sadness. He was silent for a long time. The joyful music from the wedding reception drifted down the hall. Finally, he nodded. "Okay," he breathed out. A genuine smile touched my lips, and I held out my hand. "Then here's to a happy divorce." He looked at my hand, and a sad, small smile formed on his own face. He shook it. "After we're divorced, can we still be friends? If I'm ever in Australia, could I buy you dinner?" "Of course," I said. The future is an unknown road. I had taken a massive detour, dodging a fate that was written in stone. But now, for the first time, the path ahead was clear, open, and entirely my own.